question for you. Is Bigfoot real or just another made up fairy tale designed for entertainment? Let's chat. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tat2d Preacher Podcast. This is episode number 38. Hope you are all doing awesome today. So I apologize for the audio quality in this particular episode. I'm actually on vacation in Germany. My wife is from Germany, and so I'm recording this for those of you watching in an attic in a house in Germany. So I don't have a microphone, and so we're going to make the best of it. So if it sounds a little bit different, that's why. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about the subject of Bigfoot. And I know a lot of people, as soon as you hear the phrase Bigfoot, people tune out because they think, oh, that's just, here we go, another conspiracy, another fake or hoax-filled subject. But there's actually a lot of stuff out there about it. And so I'm not going to try to convince you either way on the subject. I'm just going to give my thoughts and share the conclusion and just things that I think about the subject, because it's becoming more and more mainstream in recent months and in recent years. And so especially from a Christian perspective, talking about these kinds of things, I think, is very important. So that's where we're going in episode 38. Before we get there, though, if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. Subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, stop, hit the subscribe button, like the video. That just helps me out, helps push this out into YouTube world. And that's my little social media plug. So Bigfoot, let's talk about it. Episode 38. Sit back, relax, enjoy. All right, so Bigfoot. Now, this isn't going to be some expose, some historical documentary style kind of work on the subject of Bigfoot. There is a lot of documentaries out there, a lot of articles, a lot of other podcasts and different people who have put out a lot of content on the subject. So this is just going to be my opinions and thoughts from a just a general perspective, as I've kind of dove into this a bit over the last couple of years, and not on purpose, just from investigating a lot of the supernatural worldview of the Bible, and coming to the conclusion that the spiritual world, or the unseen realm, is not as simple as a lot of Christians like to see it as. See, so many Christians just think of the spirit world as just angels and demons, and that's just a very naive, or just a very simplistic understanding that there is so much more going on, and it's so much more complicated than just angels and demons. And so as I've dove into that, and those of you have been following me and listening to my content, you will know that I talk a lot about Genesis 6 and fallen angels mating with human women, creating a hybrid and hybrid beings, and then how these same angels mated with the animal kingdom, and then they got into genetic manipulation. And when you dive into that in more depth, you'll discover there's a lot more weird things that are out there. And one of these creatures that you will come across when you're in this sphere is Bigfoot. And so I remember as a kid, you hear stories of Bigfoot, and oftentimes it's just looked at as just some make-believe story, some random fictitious creature that lives out in the woods, and the only time it's ever photographed is very blurry, and there's so much hoax videos out there and accounts that have been just made up, and so growing up, I never thought anything of it really. It wasn't until maybe 2 or 3 years ago where I started this journey of discovering, like, there's so much more going on, that I even really began to consider this Bigfoot Sasquatch creature. And so my first thought that the first thing I want to just process, as I've looked into this, is that there's stories of these creatures in not just North America, but they're kind of scattered all over the world, and different people groups, different ethnicities, and they all kind of talk about this very same similar creature, and they go by different names. And so to me, when I see that, my curiosity really perks up, because the same kind of things are true of, in the Bible, when you're looking at the gods of the nations, and you're looking at how different civilizations and different people groups all are talking about same divine beings, just using different names. And so when we're thinking about Bigfoot, I mean, it's very interesting that you have the Native Americans talking about this tall, hair covered figure. And then, which, depending on what mainstream narrative you want to follow, but it's very possible that the Native Americans, Native Canadians even, were North America way before what's typically seen as when they arrive there. So they talk about this Bigfoot creature, and then certain parts of Europe and certain parts of, I believe, South America and Asia, they all kind of have these random accounts of this kind of figure. And so to me, that's like, okay, there's something going on there, where this same kind of creature starts popping up all over. That kind of, for me, that definitely causes me to lean in a little bit more. And so that's the first thing I began to discover as I kind of dove into it, and just hearing people who know a lot more about the subject talking about it. It was that there's just more than one account, or it's happening more than one place. Now, secondly, the amount of evidence for this sucker. Now, a lot of people will say there's just not evidence for it. It's just random people with their cell phones out, or old school cameras that are very blurry and shaky, and you can't really see what's going on. And then you mix that with so much of the hoax-filled accounts, and so it's just it lends to this idea that there's just no evidence out there. There's no data that's actually reliable, and that's actually valuable. Well, when you actually study and look into a lot of it, there is so much out there that is quantifiable, that is accurate, that is reliable. And you start digging into cases from people who've seen it, people who've come across tracks, footprints that they've had casts made of them, hunters who have heard these creatures out in the wild and like when you start getting into literally thousands of accounts of these encounters, of these experiences, of these sightings, like thousands, it crosses over from being, oh, this is just hoax, to something is going on here. Because here's the reality. If even one account of all of these is true, then you have to rethink your entire perspective. And it's the same thing when we're talking about aliens, talking about UFOs, that whole scenario. A lot of people just say, oh, that's just conspiracy, that's just fake. But when you start looking into the literal thousands upon thousands of sightings, of abductions, of things relating to that, if even one of them is true, then as the late Dr. Michael Heiser is famously known as saying, is it busts the paradigm, if one is true. And so you start looking into all the data, all of the evidence, all of these accounts, and from people who live all over the world, different ages, different ethnicities, different experiences, but all having similar accounts, is like, okay, it all can't be fake. It all can't be made up. You can't have all these people just making up random stories. Like, it's just the probability that every single one of them is all fabricated. I think that likelihood is far less than if it actually was true. So when you start getting into all the evidence, to me, it again causes me to lean in more that there's actually something going on here. There's actually something to this thing, that you have people throughout history from different civilizations seeing it, calling it by different names. You have all of these modern day accounts of it that are literally in the thousands upon thousands. And it's like, to me, that's enough to basically lean in and be like, okay, maybe there's something going on that we don't understand. And so those are kind of two basic levels that where I tend to start and really formulate my opinion on, formulate my thoughts on those two levels. Historical documentation, that's just more than just one little area from one person having some ancient record of it, but it being historically spread across different places with different people groups. And then you look into modern day accounts, and man, the sheer number of them, they all just cannot be all fabrication. Like, there has to be something going on here. And so with all that being said, now, what do I actually think these suckers are? Because again, there's lots of different theories out there. Some people think they're people who believe that they're real. They think that they're some unknown species that humanity just hasn't discovered yet, that they live out in the wild, they live out in these places, and they're very good at just being hidden. That's why there's really not a lot of evidence of them. That's why people will often say, well, show me a dead body and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, maybe they're very good at hiding. That's one of their specialties. But they're seen as an actual animal, or some kind of animal, some kind of creature that lives out in the wild that just hasn't been discovered. You have other people who will take a more supernatural route to them, where they're some kind of Nephilim creature, some interbred, either with fallen angel mixed with some kind of animal, creating, this creature. Or maybe they are a very much diluted Nephilim byproduct way down the line. Genesis 6 was ground zero for this, and we are thousands of years removed. So maybe they're still in that same genetic bloodline, that genetic lineage, and it's filtered its way all the way down to what we have today, this tall, hairy creature. And so some people will more go that route, and then there's, various opinions in between. And so for me, if I have to put this together, I tend to lean towards the second alternative, the second option. I don't think it's some unidentified species of animal. I don't think, on day 6, when God was creating the world, he was creating the lions and the bears, created the monkeys, and then created a Bigfoot. Like, I don't think it was just another animal that existed, or Sasquatch. Adam didn't call it that. I don't think it's a traditional created animal that way. For me, I think, just based on what I've been looking at and studying and diving into with the whole spiritual world, and discovering that there's so much more going on, and the discovery of the teaching of the Nephilim and how they were created, and what the fallen angels, the watchers, were doing with genetic manipulation and this interbreeding with animals, and then mating animal with animal, and just doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And then you start getting into, more down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, and you start uh, looking at the deep underground military bases and these experiments that go on down there, where they're doing this genetic splicing, and they're essentially creating things. I think that this is what Bigfoot falls into. I think that they are an engineered entity, an engineered creature, because you hear a lot of these accounts of them being able to do supernatural things. They can disappear, they can make themselves become invisible. You see them hopping in and out of portals. You see that they're connected to aliens and that whole thing. And so I think that they are some kind of engineered creature, whether stem from Genesis 6 in the story of the Nephilim, whether they were created back then and they've just figured out how to survive, or whether they are a diluted Nephilim creature that's just, over thousands of years, that bloodline has been, more and more diluted. But there were some kind of either animal creation, or some kind of, they have divine DNA, fallen watcher DNA somewhere in there, mixed with an animal, or genetically created, spliced together using a bunch of different things, and out comes a Bigfoot. And I think you see them in a lot of these remote places, because I figure, if I'm the government, or if I'm part of some secret society, some secret black program that seeks to remain hidden from the public, and I'm creating these creatures, if I'm going to put them out there to see how they're going to live, I'm going to put them out there in the wild. I'm not going to go put them in a, downtown New York, or like some heavily populated urban area. I'm going to put them out in nature. I'm going to put them out way up north, northern Canada, or, in like Washington State, where there's mountains and tons of forest, where there's like literally thousands upon thousands of acres of open land where no humans ever go. Like, that's where I'm going to put them in. Oftentimes they're seen in these kind of areas. They're not seen close to major, big cities. And so I think that maybe some of them have survived since the flood times in the Bible days, and they've just been able to, remain hidden and kind of keep to themselves, and have just, spread abroad that way. I think that's a possibility, that they're remnants from that time still, or they're created. They've been created in some lab, deep underground military lab base, and then they're released into the wild, and people are, I think, scientists or whoever is working on them, they know they're out there, and I think that maybe they're tagged and they're kept an eye on, and they're seeing how they respond and how they make it out in the wild, And so to me, that's my take. I think that's why a lot of times they remain hidden, why there's so much secret mystery around them. I think that they are how should I put that? I think there are people that know where they are, and they would know how to catch them if they want to. I think that there are, people that are in these programs where maybe these Sasquatch creatures are being created. These people who create them and are involved in that program, they know where they are and they know how to catch them. And I think that a lot of hunters and people who go out there and they try to find them, they try to search for them, and a lot of them who claim to have these encounters or who've seen them, or I think that they're being watched and they don't even realize it. I think there's a set amount that are alive, and I think the majority of them, again, are tagged. And so I think that there's people trying to find these Bigfoots, and then there's people who are watching the people who are trying to find the Bigfoots. And so I think that a lot of people, maybe when they get really close, or they, have maybe come across maybe a dead one, and they could be threatened or told, hey, you can't say what you saw, or maybe have their memory wiped or something. Like I feel like there's something bigger going on, and I think that there's definitely an agenda. There's definitely something supernatural about them, and that's why there's a lot of mystery there. That's why a lot of them stay hidden. A lot of them can transverse realms. They can hop into the natural realm and go into a different realm, because I think that there's depending on if you're a genetically engineered one or if you're one that's actually survived from whatever Genesis 6, I think that there's different skill sets and different abilities that a lot of them have. And that's why I think some maybe have been seen more, or more evidence has been discovered, just because of either they came down through Genesis 6, and so they know how to hide themselves and they know how to remain, hidden, and et cetera, versus ones that are created in a lab somewhere. Maybe they're more, not as intelligent, or I don't know. I mean, that's all speculation. So that's where I land on this subject. Again, I've heard a lot of different theories and opinions, and this is just the one that and this could change as I learn more, I hear more, more is discovered. But I think if I had to pick, if someone asked me the question, hey Joel, what's Bigfoot? Like, who is that to you? What is that to you? What do you think it is? I think that's, again, you got two lines. You got a genetically engineered one, and you got one that perhaps has made it as a Nephilim hybrid from Genesis 6. And so I think that's it. That's my thoughts. That's my opinions on this mysterious cryptid creature. But yeah, I'd be interested to know your thoughts on what you all think it is. So if you're watching this on YouTube, let me know down below what you think a Bigfoot is. Is it real? Is it not real? And if it is real, what is it? And how do you think they remain so hidden and mysterious, et cetera, and if you don't believe, if you think it's all fake, hoax, fairy tale, let me know. Again, let me know why you think that. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, shoot me an email. My email is listed in the show notes. Again, just love to hear what you have to say, and I'm open to learning and hearing other people's opinions on this kind of subject, because it's one of those things where a lot of it's speculation, right? A lot of it's just gathering information that you can gather and kind of using that to formulate your own opinion. So we'd love to know your thoughts. But thanks so much for listening or watching episode 38, talking about Bigfoot and what it is. Let me know your thoughts. And thanks so much for watching. And we'll see you all in the next podcast. Much love and God bless.